Welcome to Veterans Archives, where we are dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes. We hope you enjoy this story. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share our videos. Check us out across all social media. Be sure to like and share those pages as well. And for more information, go to www.veteransarchives.org. Today is Tuesday, April 29th. We're talking with Mike Mikus, who served in the United States Marine Corps. So good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon.
Great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, we're going to start out real easy.
Okay.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Dearborn, Michigan in 1959 at Oakwood Hospital.
Okay. Did you grow up in Dearborn then?
No, I grew up in Belleville, Michigan, farm country.
Yeah.
So it was a different life being a kid. No friends around, no nothing. We're just 27 acres to play on.
Wow. So how many, where was your nearest neighbor?
It was between a little over a quarter mile away.
Okay. So you really had to work if you wanted to meet the neighbors.
Right. Didn't really have friends till you were 10 years old.
Yeah.
When you could actually venture out a little bit.
Well, what about brothers and sisters?
Got 4 sisters and 1 brother.
Oh, good Lord.
So there were 6 of us. Should have been 9 of us altogether. My mom had a few problems and would have been a big family.
Yeah. I think 6 is a big family.
It is.
Where'd you fall in the food chain there?
3rd.
Okay.
So right in the middle of the pack.
So you were the middle kid.
Yeah. One of them.
Do you have all those middle kid problems?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So were your brothers and sisters kind of close in age then?
Yeah, we were all pretty much, my oldest sister is right now 67 or 68. I'm sorry. My next sister now was 67. So I'm going to be 66 this year. And then my brother's 2 years younger than me. And then my other sister was 3 years younger. And then my last sister was probably about 6 years younger than me.
Okay. So on your 27 acres, were you guys each other's friends quite a bit?
We were to a point till they got sick of me.
Right.
I was kind of the brute of the family, I guess you could say.
Yep, I could see that. So tell me a little bit of what was it like growing up on the farm? Talk, maybe a little bit about your parents and how that was.
Sure. So we lived on 27 acres and there were no friends around. So you would find me any day after school or on the weekends out in the fields playing in the ditches. And that's what we did. You go out in the back and make trails through the woods. The farm used to be a 27-acre strawberry farm. My grandparents lived next door, sold my parents 3/4 of an acre. So we had the whole thing. But they did that for the longest time, making money on the side until one day a truck came down the road and took out the fruit stand. And, after they worked so hard to gain everything. But pretty much for us, it was just playing in ditches and riding our bikes. My mom didn't work. My dad worked for the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit Times back in the day. He was a district manager. And pretty much we didn't see him. He worked nights. So my mom was the law enforcement in the house. And if we were able to catch up with my dad a couple hours a night, that's what we had, you know. So a little bit different family life where the kids had their dad and stuff home all day with them or on the weekends. When we didn't really have that because when he was sleeping, we were in school and he'd get up and go to work.
Yeah. My dad worked 3rd shift at General Motors,
right.
So I get it. It's like they're there, but they're not really there.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are kind of, other than your mom making sure no one got hurt, you were kind of left to your own devices for a while.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's a little bit different than nowadays. I mean, literally, we would go outside at probably 7 o'clock in the morning. And if we were lucky, we'd come back in and scrounge something to eat and then head right back out again, come back when it was dark. We would stay outside so much that my parents said I can remember being little, like 7, 8 years old, 6, 7, 8. My mom telling me to get back in the shower and go scrub that dirt off. And it wasn't dirt. It was just how dark I was because from being outside in the sun all day. So that was, I can remember that vividly.
Wow. That's quite a tan.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started going to school. Did you go to school in Belleville then?
Yeah, I went to school in Belleville. Again, that was a tough one because I went to a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And so all my friends went off and went to the regular grade elementary school. And here I was being shipped off to another school. So you didn't get to hang with them. or you didn't even really know the kids in your neighborhood because of that fact. You didn't go to school with them. So he did that probably until I think I was in sixth grade.
Mhm.
And then that's when my life kind of busted open. Because after sixth grade, then you were old enough to where you could venture out. I would ride my bike and take off, but we lived on a major road, E-course road. The speed limit was 50 mile an hour going to Hydromatic right down the street.
Yeah.
So it was scary, but I don't know. I survived.
I used to take E-course road into Taylor
Yep.
when I drilled out of Taylor. I know that area pretty well.
Yeah. We grew up right at the corner pretty much of E-course and Haggerty.
Okay.
Yeah, right in that area.
Surprisingly, I know exactly what you're talking
Right,
about.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it used to be Chet's Bar on the corner.
Yeah, the only thing I remember down there is Tim Hortons, but I don't think that's there anymore either.
Right.
But yeah, so sixth grade, things kind of opened up for you then.
Yeah, because I had free reign then. You know, I could go pretty much wherever I wanted to, and then I would start riding down towards Haggerty Road, and I started meeting all the kids in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Well, once I did that, they all had bikes, and so we would hang out at each other's house. And again, it was an open house policy. They'd come to our house, I'd go to their house, and it wasn't even a knock anymore. You just go on in and see who's there.
Yeah.
So, and we had, like I say, we had 27 acres out back, and we would all meet in the woods. And so I had trails cut through, and they had trails cut through from their side. And we'd meet out there. They had horses, so we'd ride horses out there, mini bikes, build jumps, forts, corrals for the horses. And I mean, we were still young. We probably should be having saws and stuff like that, but we were doing it.
Oh yeah. Well, in the jump, like the bike jumps that we used to make,
Oh yeah,
kids today just don't get it.
no,
I'm sorry,
no.
they don't.
We probably should be missing arms and stuff for the stuff that we did.
Probably shouldn't be sitting here. I'll tell
Right,
you that right
right.
now.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you continue at Catholic school and through all of school?
No, just for up till the sixth grade, and then they pulled me out because
Okay.
at the time, back then, parents weren't making a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And Catholic school was pretty expensive, especially with six kids. So the younger three lucked out; they got to go to regular school.
Oh.
But for the most part, after sixth grade, then like I say, it all broke open. We were able to do pretty much what we wanted to. Then you start making friends in, elementary schools and junior high and things like that. So that was pretty cool.
Was it a pretty big change from sixth grade not being in the Catholic school to being in the public
Yes,
school?
very much very much because of the fact that we were taught by nuns. Okay. And I mean, you could go to elementary school and the teacher would holler at you a little bit like that. Look at these knuckles, man. I used to get wrapped with the
Well,
rulers.
you answered the question I was about to
Yeah.
ask.
Oh yeah, we had Sister Mary Pontchartrain. I can
Uh-huh.
remember her for a fact that she used to look there and she'd go, "I'm so mad I could spit hot lava," and if you didn't have your homework, that was worth a whack with the ruler. And I mean, it was brutal back then.
Sister Mary Pontchartrain.
Right?
Man, that sounds like something right out of Saturday Night
I know,
Live.
I know. You think about that. That's something you read in a book.
You can't make that stuff
No,
up.
you sure can't.
Not
You
at
sure
all.
can't.
So you get into junior high, and what kind of student were you?
I was. I tell you, I didn't like school. I mean, I did what I had to do to get through.
Mhm.
And I guess that probably really wasn't the right thing to do. I probably should have studied a little bit more, but back then all you could think about, I want to get home, play, and that kind of things. So I wouldn't say I was a bad student, but more than once a week I wouldn't go with my homework done and all that.
Did this phrase get used a lot? He has a lot of potential.
Yeah, yep, sure was. So I mean, but the things that I didn't learn in school, I think I learned at home.
Mhm.
By the time I was 10 years old, I was tearing apart engines off of mowers. And, with 27 acres, we probably mowed 5 acres total. And I was mowing grass by 10 by myself, um, getting paid to mow the neighbor's yard, things of that nature. So, I mean, I could tear engines apart. And by the time I was 12, I was changing the oil in my parents' cars and stuff like that. So, I mean, a lot of it, I think a lot of it was self-taught because my dad wasn't really around, or he was, but not for us to utilize.
Right.
And I don't know if he could have did that stuff anyway. But I just learned, reading books or looking at pictures and okay, this is how you do it. I've made a few mistakes.
That's how you learn,
made
Mike.
mess made messes and cleaned them up.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have like an aptitude for motors and things that
Yeah,
move.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, reading a book or looking at a book, I think I can see what's in the book and then go at and do the project,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't know, pretty good. I guess uh, it's fun. I like tinkering things and fixing things and putting things together.
So when you were in school, that's still in the era where they had like shop classes and things like
Yes.
that, right?
Yeah.
So is that where you excelled in school?
I think so
Uh-huh.
because most of once you hit high school and junior high, they had vocational tech and all this other things, and most of my days were taken up with that sort of thing. I had welding classes, auto mechanics, auto body.
Mhm.
So I mean, I was working on everybody's car. I had my car and they were working on it, and so I don't know. I had buddies that needed help, so I would go do it, and I
Yeah.
was kind of good at it, so it helped out.
I remember years ago when my son got, I think it's like his first or second car, but it needed brakes.
Hmm.
And so we went out in the driveway and we put brakes on it, and he was just amazed.
Amazed.
I was like, dude, like when I grew up, like you could just
Right.
barely afford the car.
Right.
If you wanted stuff to work right,
Right.
you had to be the one to do it. So it was kind of nice to teach him to do that stuff,
Sure.
it was just something I always did. So
Hmm.
I didn't think that someone
Right.
needed to learn this. You just know how to do it, right?
Right. Right. And that was me too. By
Mhm.
the time we started having kids and stuff, it was just everything was second nature to
Yeah.
me. What do you mean you know how to do that?
Right. Right. Yeah. We're going to put a stereo in this car. Let
Right.
me show you how that
Mhm.
works.
Exactly.
No, I remember
Exactly.
those days. So you make it through school. Did you play any sports or anything like that in
No,
school?
I was a motorhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, all through school. I mean, all of us, we were back in the year, 77 was when I graduated. So 75, and we all had hot cars. I had a 70 Cuda with
Oh,
a 340. And of course, you put the big tires on it and ladder bars. And all my friends had Camaros or Firebirds or Chargers or something like that. And so that's what we did. We would hang out with our cars. We even had to the point where when going to school, my nickname was Archer because back then you didn't have cell phones. There was no way to get a hold of anybody. So we all put CB radios in our car. So,
well, that was the time too, right? That
yeah,
was when the
sure
CVs were,
was.
yeah. Because I was a little bit younger, but I remember going.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to like CB coffee breaks. We had all kinds of crazy stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would contact each other in the morning on the way to school. We going to school today or what we doing?
Well,
So,
the nice thing is no one else
right.
can,
Yeah. So,
no one can check your CB to see who you've been talking to.
right. So that was an interesting part in our lives with the CBs and no phones and stuff. Your phone was hooked to the wall, so everybody heard what you were saying,
Right.
and so that was just nice. And I mean, every one of my friends had them, so we could get a hold of anybody at any time.
Now, did you have that home phone with like the 90-foot cord on
Oh
it?
yeah,
So you go like all the way down in the
and
basement.
you stretch it to 110.
Right. Right. I know. I remember. And then we get all coiled up and
Right.
ridiculous. And then your mom would be yelling, "Get off the phone."
Exactly.
I remember those days.
Exactly. Yep.
So you get through high school and you graduate. What's next?
So during high school, um, I wouldn't say that me and my dad didn't really get along because I could honestly say I probably really didn't know
Yeah.
him. And, so I told him one day, I said, I think I'm going to go to college, just a community college or whatever. And he looked at me and he goes, "You're too stupid to go to college." And I went, okay. So that's the way this is going to roll. And thought about it for a little bit. And within the next week or so, this was probably in July, no, it was probably in February
Mhm.
of 77. And that's when he said this to me and didn't know if he was joking or not, but it sticks with you
Yeah.
being young.
Oh, that's your dad.
Yep. So I went down, talked to my buddies, and we were out. And I said, "So what's your plans? What are you gonna do?" And he goes, "I don't know." He says, "I want to be a dog trainer." And I go, "Where are you gonna get schooling for that at?" He goes, "I was thinking about joining the military." I went, sounds different. He goes, "I'm going to a meeting. You want to go?" And I went, "Sure, let's go." So we went down there and talked to the recruiters, and haven't even talked to my parents yet. I was still 17. And so he's talking to him about his stuff, and he goes, "What?" The recruiter looked at me and he goes, "What about you?" And I go, "I'm just kind of here listening to see what you guys got to offer and all this stuff." And he says, "What do you like to do?" I says, "Well, I like working on motors and things of that nature." And I says, "I wouldn't mind working on airplanes or something of that." And he goes, "Well, that's pretty cool. We got stuff like that that we could offer with you." Well, needless to say, by the time I left there, I was already signed up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just had to get your parents' permission at this point, right?
Right. 17, no parents' permission. He goes, "Well, just take these papers home and get them filled out by your parents, and we'll get you going as soon as you get out of high school."
Yeah.
And took the papers home, and nope, they wouldn't sign them. Didn't want nothing to do with it. So luckily enough, my birthday was July 30th, and
Mhm.
I graduated in May. Got out a little bit early. So, but I was already signed up, so I was on delayed entry and all that, and shipped out August.
Wow. So was there a reason why your parents weren't on board with this? I mean,
I don't know. I really,
yeah,
I don't know. I just maybe they figured I wouldn't follow through with it,
yeah.
you know. But there is once you're in there, man, you follow it through.
Yeah, there's only two ways that's going to work out.
Yeah. So funny story here with that. So we both signed up at the same time, and we went down to Detroit and had our ASVAB tests or whatever you want to call them, and
Did you stay at the Mariner Hotel downtown?
we were close enough, so we just
Oh, you just
yeah,
drove. Yeah,
just
okay.
drove. So we went through there and did all the testing, and you signed the last documents that you needed to sign. So I had to sign up for delayed entry because my parents wouldn't sign for me. We come out of the meetings, and he went one way, I went another, and I says, "I'll meet you back here towards the end of the day when we're all done." And we go, "Okay." We had to get physicals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was worried. I got flat feet, so I was worried. Back then, they took anybody. So, so we met up towards the end of the day, and I said, "So when do you ship?" He goes, "Yeah, I failed. I'm not going." And I went like, "What? What do you mean you're not going?" He goes, "Yeah, I failed my test, so I don't get to go." And so there I was, all signed up, ready to go, and nobody to go with. But
Wow.
yeah, it was kind of a shocker. You take it to heart, and you thought everything was good, and I don't know if he purposely failed them or what. If
Right.
he got scared or whatever, but it wasn't no big deal.
Well, and here you were thinking that you were going to be the one that wasn't going to go, right?
Sure,
And then,
sure.
yeah, everything turned around.
Yep.
So you get into delayed entry, and you're not really in delayed entry that long, then.
No, just about 2 months, I think, at the time. And so then, basically they said, "All right, report to Detroit down here at such and such a time." Had my buddy drive me down because my parents still wouldn't do it. And
So they were still not on board with
yeah,
this.
still not on board.
Wow.
So went down there and he dropped me off, and I, "All right, see you whenever.
Yeah.
Boot camp was 13 weeks back then.
Now, where did you go?
San Diego,
Oh,
Hollywood Marine.
yeah, right
Yeah.
behind the airport there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We used to watch them planes take off every single day, just wishing you were on one of them.
I got a funny story about that. I know this is your story, but I'll
That's
share
all
this
right.
with you.
That's
So I went to basic training at the Naval Training Center there. It's
Mhm.
backs right up to the Marine Corps
Yep.
recruit depot. And we had this kid, probably like 4 weeks in, he just had enough, and he jumped the fence because he's going to go run to the airport and fly home, right? But he jumped the fence right into Marine Corps boot camp.
Nice.
They kept him for a couple of weeks.
Right?
And when they brought him back, he was the best sailor ever.
I'll bet.
That guy did everything he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of torture. You're out there because we used to watch you guys, and your boot camp was no joke. But then those stupid planes, you're looking at the planes all day
know.
long.
Every day you watch them planes take off it's 90 degrees outside and we're shoveling snow, because that's what they told us to do. Shovel the sidewalks off. It snowed last night. Okay, I guess.
Whatever you say, sir.
do what you say.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask though, like when you got to basic training, was that somewhat of a culture shock for you, or you just like show up and you're like, here I am?
no, I think it was a culture shock for everybody.
Yeah.
Because you're used to doing what you want. And, you're riding the bus and we got our long hair and all this stuff. And, you got your pack of smokes in your pocket.
Yep.
So you're sitting on the bus and it pulls up and there's not really nobody around right now. And next thing you know, here comes the drill instructors and they come marching out and they open up the door and just all hell breaks loose. Get out there screaming, they're hollering, "Get off the bus right now! Let's go, let's go, let's go!" And so we all did it, and that was the start.
Yeah. You didn't keep that long hair very long, did you?
No, no, probably we were waiting for our platoon to build, so we probably got to keep it for like 3 days, and then we got enough people to build our platoon 1104, and we got that, and then they marched us all right down, and they go, you sit down in a chair. So how do you want it cut?
Yeah. Yeah. Leave a little on the top.
A little off the sides, and that they did just put the clipper on and they buzz it right down to nothing, and
Yeah.
you got that white head out there in the sun.
How many guys cried? Anybody cry?
I think probably we had a couple. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember, but yeah,
Late 70s, people were pretty invested in their hair.
yeah, yeah. Mine was down to my shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had it that way since?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's pretty much like it is right now. Number 3 on the sides and clip the top a little bit.
Once you get used to that, it's hard to get unused
yeah.
to it, isn't it?
Yeah, I went this morning to get a haircut because it was over my ears. I just can't stand it. Can't stand it.
Yeah, my wife likes long hair. I don't. So this is our compromise.
Right,
I get it cut like every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I would take a number 3 all over, but my wife doesn't care for it either. So.
I was a high and tight guy,
Right, right.
Razor cut, all that stuff.
Sure.
Loved it. So you get to basic training and you're there for quite a while. What was it? What was basic training like once you kind of got into the groove?
It was, every day was something new that we didn't figure on learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a runner. I don't like running. I don't like all that stuff. But, we had 5-mile runs, and, they'd start you off with the 1 mile and then the 3 mile and the 5 mile. And then your forced 15-mile marches. Excuse me. And, I enjoyed it other than the running. So like I say, I don't run to this day.
Yeah.
Unless
somebody's chasing me.
But every day it was something new. You go out there and you're fighting with the bugle sticks or learning drill. And it's funny because most people show up to boot camp and they assign you your drill instructors. And I've talked to other people and their drill instructors. They had a sergeant, a couple corporals, and things of that nature. We showed up and they told us, okay, today you're going to get your permanent drill instructors for boot camp. And we had 5 staff sergeants walk in, and we're going, holy crap, man, we're not supposed to have staff sergeants. Maybe one
right
that would lead you, but we had 5 staff sergeants show up, and we just go, this can't be good, And they were strict, and they were well worn in their ways, and it's their way or the highway, which of course it always is. And
yeah,
you would go to sleep at night, and of course you laid in your bunk at attention with singing the military, the Marine Corps hymn.
Yep.
And you would wake up, and we weren't allowed out of our racks at night. This is still in the time they were probably not supposed to touch you when you're, for training and stuff. But we had a foot locker or a closet that they would take you in and tune you up a little bit.
Give a little wall-to-wall counseling.
Yeah, a little wall-to-wall counseling, right?
Yeah.
I can remember some stories. But you'd wake up in the middle of the night, and our drill instructors would leave their light on in their one office because one person stayed with you in the barracks all night long.
Yeah.
And he would be standing out just in the light where the light's being cast out of his doorway, and he's doing all these karate moves. And you're going, man, I don't know, is this for real or is this just a scare tactic?
Probably a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, but he scared us enough that we didn't screw up, and we get out there, and we won a couple of the parades and stuff for our marching and all that stuff. And it just seems like if there was a time to get in trouble, I would find it, even in boot camp. And we in Marine Corps, I don't know if the Army does it, but we have to slam our heels into the ground when you march. So that's the cadence. You make that noise, and so it wasn't uncommon for 4 or 5 people a week to have heel contusions. Bruised heels and things. So one day we were doing that, and I'm going, man, my feet are killing me, because every night you'd have to stand on your foot locker, and they'd rub their hands up and down to your Achilles to see what's going on. And if you flinched, you're going to sick bay.
Yeah.
So I got put on, I don't know, now no marching duty for 2 days, 2 days off. So I was sitting in the barracks one day. You sat there and you could write letters or something like that, or clean in barracks. So I'm sitting in the barracks and I'm writing a letter. I got a pen in my hand, and here come, I think it was a second lieutenant or something in the corner, come around the corner, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's got bars on his shoulder. You know, we got
Now what
nothing.
do you do?
Yeah, now what do you do? So I stood up and saluted and dressed myself, and needless to say, I had my pen still stuck in my hand as I was saluting him, and he just looked at me and come over, got about 6 inches from my face, and give me the once over, up and down, and after that, it was pretty cool. But it
Yeah.
seemed like I always ran into that same guy when we're in a run or something like that. And, at the time, I really didn't care for the guy because, he got in my face and blah, blah, blah. We're still pretty early into boot camp. But it was like the point where you almost want to pummel a guy, take him out. And I'd see him somewhere where we're on a run or a march or something like that. And I'd look. And every time I looked off to the side, he would catch me looking, man. And next thing you know, he's at my drill instructor and putting my face in the dirt, give me 100 here. And, so yeah, I would get in trouble sometimes.
I think we all found trouble in boot camp.
Right.
So when you got done with basic training, did your family come out for graduation or anything? Were they like at least a little bit on board by now?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
So we graduated, and I was in San Diego again. And we went through the ceremonies, and I pretty much jumped on a plane, flew back home.
Uh-huh.
Was home probably for a week before I went to my A school. And that's when, when you're in graduating boot camp, they're telling you all the things that you can do. This is what you signed up for. We're going to get you this, 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 and this. And then on the very last day, they go, yeah, that's really not available.
Right.
My recruiter lied to me kind of story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I was at the last couple of days. He says, so what do you want to do? I says, I signed up to go and want to work on jets. And he goes, well, we don't really have any openings right now for jets, but we got helicopters. And I go, all right, helicopters are probably even a little bit better because you can go for rides in helicopters. Kind of hard to get a ride in a jet, 2-seater or whatever. And so I said, that's cool. And so we signed up for that and went home on leave for a week, I think it was, and was off to A school in Millington, Tennessee.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, what was it like to come home after being in boot camp? Because you changed, but
100%.
A lot of people don't.
Right. When I went into boot camp, if you can picture, I don't know, maybe the nerdy kid with a squirrely voice, real high pitched voice going into the Marine Corps. That's how I went in, and I came back with this voice.
You came back a man.
I think it's just all from the hollering and yelling and doing what they say.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody was surprised, whose voice is that when you walk in, but I don't even know that I got picked up at the airport.
Wow.
Tell you the truth, just kind of showed back up at home. I probably had one of my buddies pick me up. I don't really remember. But when I was in boot camp, the only thing I can say is that my dad would write.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would look forward to those letters. He was the only one, never got anything from my mom. But my dad would write me a letter probably once, twice a week. And of course, he would slip a piece of gum in there that the drill instructor would find and, get an extra workout for that.
Did you find that you learned something about your dad through those letters?
Yeah, I did. And a lot more probably than I even knew growing up.
Mm-hmm.
He would tell me stories and things of that. And my dad was kind of a jokester, and he was always making fun of things. And the return address on it was Captain such and such, and the drill instructor would look at it and explain this, So.
Just trying to get you in trouble.
Yep, trying to get me worked out a little bit.
That's right.
So came back a whole different person.
Yeah. Did you have a girl back home?
Not really, not at the time. Dated a little bit, but me and the guys were too busy hanging out. There was no time for that yet.
You got your priorities.
Plus, we really didn't. I mean, back then, when I was in high school, I would work and do odd jobs. I worked at McDonald's for a while, and that just really didn't cut it. But back then, minimum wage, we were working for $2 an hour.
Yeah.
$2 an hour, you work for 2 weeks, and they give you a check of $160, and you go, all right, that's tank of gas.
Yeah. Hey, you fill up your car and you go on your way.
Yep. You have a little bit to do stuff with, but yeah. So we really didn't have a whole lot of money to play with. So we would do odd stuff and get extra money to work on our cars and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. So you leave Michigan, you head to Millington, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So how was that?
That was pretty good.
Was that a Navy school?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not saying that to pick on you.
No, it's all
But I
right.
know that the Marine Corps and the Navy do a lot of stuff together
Yeah,
because
we're part of the Navy, the best part. But
well, I'm going to tell you what I was told one time. One of my Marine Corps friends, he was giving me a hard time, and I said, if you look at your ID card, you're just a Department of the Navy.
right,
He said, yeah, the men's department.
right, right. Yeah, I've heard them all.
So you get to Millington, Tennessee.
So we get there and, we get all set up with our barracks. And now it's getting, you're still not sure what to expect, but now it's almost another relaxed atmosphere
Uh-huh.
because we're in school now. We're learning about what we can do and things of that nature. And so we do our school. And I had my sister was going on a trip. And so she brought my motorcycle down for me, towed it behind the car. And so at least I had a motorcycle on base. And, that at least gave me some ways to get around town. But I did well through the schools. I put a lot of effort into those schools.
Right.
It's something I wanted to learn, So I don't know where I graduated in class, but it's pretty close, high up to the top. And so pretty much we got our choice of pick of where we wanted to go. While I was there, I took up remote control aircraft flying.
Oh.
Built my first plane while I was on base. Flew it one time and crashed it. Okay,
An expensive hobby.
right, expensive. But even still on base, we'd get off work. We'd get out of school and I'd head right over because they had automotive departments too, and we'd all work on our cars and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Did they call them auto hobby shops back then? Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah. It's still. I say back then I went into the military in '83, so it wasn't too far behind you.
Right.
But yeah, the auto hobby shop was awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Every tool you could ever want.
Yep, that's a fact.
Now, did you still have the CUDA?
Nope, I had at the time then I had a '77 Chevy Monza,
Oh.
which was a hatchback, and it was a nice little car. It sat low, but of course we pulled it and put a V8 in it, and it was souped up, and I can lift the front tires off the ground about 6 inches.
That Monza was a great car because it was so light, but you could
Right.
stuff a 350 in there with no
Yep,
problem.
easily. So we did that, and that's where we, back when I had that still when I was in high school,
Mhm.
and went through clutches about 4 or 5 a year. Not that we were hard on them,
Right. Not to mention tires and everything
Right,
else.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And what kind of bike did you have?
It was just a little Suzuki. It was a 400.
Yeah.
Something I found a deal on, so I bought it, and it was just something to get around town, and it was easy on fuel,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fun. It was a nice little bike, loud, of course.
Yeah, of course. So how long were you in Millington then? How long was your school?
I think our school was, 6 months. We did 6 months training in Millington, and that was, I went into hydraulics.
Okay.
So it was all hydraulics, learning, the different parts of helicopters. And it was because it was all geared towards helicopters because they knew that's where I was going. And learned all about that. And then pretty much graduation came and they said, where you want to go? I go, well, what's open? And of course, Jacksonville, North Carolina, New River Air Station,
Okay.
part of Camp Lejeune.
Yeah.
Same water, of course.
Yeah, my brother went to Camp Lejeune. There's a whole story about that, but yeah.
Yep. So, and I think I don't even think I went home after school. I went right to my duty station, and that's where I served my time.
Now, did your dad continue writing to you while you were
No,
in? Okay.
no. And once pretty much I got out of boot camp, then that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I would call home every once in a while and get to talk to people and take my vacations when I could. And I used to ride that Suzuki, excuse me, the little 400, and I'd take off from North Carolina and I'd ride it straight through to Michigan.
Yeah.
And that's a long ride through the mountains and all that, middle of the night, freezing your butt off just to go home. But it was all worth it.
There's nothing better than being on a bike, though.
No,
It's
was
as
fun.
close to flying as you can get and still be
Yep.
on the ground.
Yep, that's a fact.
Yeah. Loved it. So tell me about your duty. So you, this was the only duty station that you went to then?
Yep.
This is where you served out the rest of your time?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So tell me about that. What was that like?
Okay, so With the scores that I had pretty much a choice of what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. He goes, "You want to work flight line? Do you want to work different levels?" And I go, "So the choices are: you could work flight line, you could do intermediate level maintenance, or depot level maintenance. Depot level maintenance was someplace way off in the boondocks, and I go, we're not going to do that. But intermediate level maintenance sounded pretty good. So basically, when they would fly the choppers and things would break, they would, if they couldn't repair them, they would bring them to our shop on base, which is just right next to all the hangars,
Hmm.
and we would repair them. We had all the test equipment, and we did everything from valves, pumps, struts, wheels, landing gear, the rotor assemblies. So it was just the next step up from what they could do on ground level,
Right.
and that was a lot of fun. Made a lot of friends there. Being there for the basically 3 years that I was there, 4 years, made a lot of friends, and you see people come, you see people go, and of course, as soon as I get there, I met this one guy. His name's Sergeant Kennedy. It was R.L. Kennedy was his name,
Uh huh.
and pretty much took me under his wing and became my mentor and changed my life.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So,
If you need to take a breath, take a
yeah.
breath, Mike. That's okay.
Hmm.
I can tell this guy meant a lot to you. Do you want me to get some tissue?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm just asking.
Yep. Yep. So, you know, of course, we were spoiled young kids still. Just, no stripes on your arms, I went in a private, and
Yeah.
I met him, and he's like, he catch me doing stuff. And no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. So, like I say, he took me under his wing. I met his family. Um, Instead of hanging out on base, a lot of times I'd go hang out, and he'd invite me to his place. So he lived off base and just taught me the ins and outs. And the other guys that didn't have that, I mean, it was rough on them. It was really rough. But like I say, he mentored me and brought me along through the whole thing. Showed me how to gain rank,
Hmm.
which was a tough to do in the Marine Corps. And but I followed his rules. I followed his example, and within 2 years, I was sergeant. So, but every little duty that you could sign up for, that was me. I signed up for it all. Um, Within a year of being there, I became a collateral duty inspector. So any parts that were fixed had to be signed off on
Hmm.
to be put onto the helicopters. So it means we had to inspect them. So I went and I got all of that. And pretty much that states that, you're willing to go fly in that chopper anytime that they put these parts on, because they can come to your shop and go, we just put these on. Let's go.
Yeah.
So you got others guys' hands in your lives in your hand, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, without Bob, um, I don't know if I would have had such a good time, because I enjoyed it. I really
Yeah.
did.
It
Again, it was
probably would have been easy to go down the wrong path if you didn't have
sure,
that mentor, right?
sure, because you get in the wrong group. You got the one guy that's in your shop that's been a private 6 times.
Yeah. That should be telling you something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and he's about ready to get out.
Yeah.
He just got busted again. But yeah, so that was a good duty there. I really enjoyed hanging out with them. While I was there, we had to go on Mediterranean cruises.
Okay.
Okay, so on our helicopter, so I did three med cruises.
Uh huh.
I figured if I'm going to do something, I might as well go see some of the world. So we did three Mediterranean cruises. I was on the Iwo Jima, the USS Guadalcanal, and the USS Saipan.
I'm familiar with all three of those.
Right?
Before I was in the Army, I was in the Navy.
Okay.
So I was in Norfolk for 4 years.
Okay.
Those are all
Nice.
very familiar to me.
Right. Right. And so, I mean, my squadron would get assigned to go out, and they would go, okay, so you make us you're shipping out with them. And I go, that's cool. So we would go out there and we'd do our thing on the ship, and we'd come back from that cruise, and the next squadron's getting ready because they got a 3 day delay or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and they're getting ready, and these guys are going, man, I don't want to leave my family and all this stuff. And I go, all right, let's go talk to your captain. So I'd walk over there and switch squadrons from one squadron to the next. and ship out in 3 more days. Go
Yeah.
back out.
Why not?
Right.
You're a young guy. You're not married, right? So
Right.
might as well.
Exactly. So I would keep a little bit of spending cash for myself, and the rest of it was deposited in a bank account at home. So it was kind of amazing because I mean I've been all through the whole med from one end to the other. Spain, Portugal. We went up through the Netherlands, Greece, Italy. Been to Italy more times than I could imagine. Same with Spain. So now my wife's trying to get me to go on cruises through there, and I go, I've been there.
It might be different. It might be different,
and I'm
but
sure it probably is.
still.
Sure, I can remember being in Spain when they were having an uprising with Americans,
Uh-huh.
and the shopkeepers and storekeepers, when the ship pulls in, that means money for them. Because I mean, we're getting off with our pockets bulging and heading to bars and the shops, and we all started walking down this one alley, and we came to an intersection. When we got to the intersection, there were probably 500 Spanish people with these bamboo rods, probably 12-foot bamboo rods, and they're just whipping them through the air. We're going, all right. Well, there's only like 20 or 30 of us in this little group, and we're going, all right. So what do we do? Do we go through this, or do we turn around and go back? And if we go through it, I'm sure there's going to be repercussions when we get back to the ship. And so we kind of stood there for a little bit, and then out of a doorway from a little place right next to it, out of a doorway, here come all the shop owners,
Mhm.
and they had bigger sticks, and they brushed everybody back. And so they gave us our leeway, and we could go spend our money. But a lot of good things I've seen in all these different countries, and that was pretty cool. One of the cruises we did was a 9-month cruise. I forget what they called that one, but it was at the time when they had our hostages in Iran.
Yeah.
And so we ended up going down through the canal and crossing over the equator. So Golden Shellback, we crossed at 00.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went out of our way. We had a little bit of time, so the
Uh-huh.
captain did that, and we went out of our way and crossed at 00 to become Golden Shellbacks. And that's a little story right there.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
All right, so you have to go through an initiation,
Mhm.
with the kings of the sea and all these things. And I mean, pretty much you're down to your skivvies on crawling on the flight deck, and it's all rough stuff there, and you bleeding everywhere, and they're hitting you with fire hoses and all these other things, and putting you in water tanks and spraying hoses on you. But it was pretty cool. The best thing about it was the day before that of the initiation, you could get back at the people that you think are going to do stuff to you.
Right.
So we knew one of the guys that was participating. So about 4 of us got together, and of course he was a CB.
Uh-huh.
So we didn't know much about CVs back then. So we get this guy, and I think 5 or 6 of us grabbed him. We had 100 foot of rope, and we tied this guy up, and we wrapped him up. I don't know how he could even move a pinky. He looked like a mummy. And we grabbed him, we threw him into a closet. And before we could get the door closed, he was coming back out. We're going, oh crap.
It's not a guy you want to mess with.
No. So we tried to be friends after that, but he knew it was all in fun, and
Yeah.
gave us a little bit of extra harassing during the initiations and stuff. But like I say, you got to go with it and just flow with it. It was all good. People were complaining they can't do this to us, and I go with it already.
Right. It's camaraderie.
Yes,
That's what I think.
it's building a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have to kiss Neptune's belly?
Oh yeah, of course you did. And he would grab you by the back of the head and rub you right in there.
Yeah, because he had like all kinds of grease and
Oh,
everything.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
disgusting.
The tubes, they would take all the food from the chow hall that was
Yeah.
left over and throw it in these tubes, and you had to crawl through them, and pretty disgusting. It was fun.
Yeah, it's a great time. I
Yeah.
mean, really.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, were there a lot of your fellow Marines that had gotten their shell back then, or was this kind of a?
I don't think so. I think I was the only one. Maybe one other person in our shop
Yeah.
had a shellback, and I think he was just a shellback, not a golden shellback,
Mhm.
crossing at 00. Because that's pretty. I heard it's pretty uncommon.
Yeah.
So to do that, and for our captain to take us a little bit out of the way and do that was pretty cool. So on that mission, on that one right there I think it was Operation Eagle Claw. We were just a support ship, so we didn't really we didn't get ribbons or nothing for it because we were on the outskirts of it.
Right.
But our helicopters would fly and they'd land on another ship, but we were the support ship out there for the parts, and we'd get parts and kind of send them back in there for that. And that was a pretty good one. Then we turned around from there and going back through, and Nixon was visiting Libya.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, they ended up killing their president in Libya. And so we had to get Nixon out of there. So our ship went over there and we evacuated Nixon. But during the process, Libya put 2 planes in the air and shot at 2 of ours. And so we splashed both of those, put those in the drink. And then we all had shirts made up, Libya 0, USA 2, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, the captain would come over to speaker. These shirts will not leave the ship, and all this stuff, so we don't cause other conflicts. But it was kind of interesting, and that's pretty much the closest I ever got to any live conflict. I mean, we were locked and loaded on the ship with our, in our hydraulic shops and things
Right.
like that, just in case something happened, but never saw any actual fighting or combat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys shot down 2 planes. I mean, that's not nothing,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Not nothing.
Yeah.
And I say, people say, so you didn't see combat. I go, well, when I signed up, I didn't know I wasn't going to see it.
Right. Right. When you sign up, this is what people don't understand. So I tell people this all the time, is that if you served, then you're a veteran, right? You don't, it's not about combat or anything like that, because you signed a blank check.
You don't know where you're going.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And
I mean, when I was signing up at the time, we were just getting out of the draft, and they were talking to put the draft back in.
Right.
And when my buddy started talking about going, I go, might as well. We're going to probably get the call anyway.
Right. Might as well go do it on your terms, right?
Right. And get to do something that we want to do versus being out there pounding the ground.
Right. Right. I mean, you might get stuck in the Marine Corps or something, right?
Right. Exactly.
So did you do many cruises after that one then?
I did a total of 3.
Okay. So you did 2 back to back then?
Yeah, 2 back to back. And then I think that even the last one, I wasn't supposed to go on. But again, guys didn't want to leave their families, and I was single, just doing nothing but drinking beer all night. So I'll go, so.
You might as well.
Leave guys at home with their families that didn't need to go.
Yeah. So I'm curious, was your friend Rob there this whole time then while you were?
We did 2 of the 3 cruises together.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was fun. And he's out, he already did one before me. And so we would go out and he would show me different parts of Italy and Spain. And, they got the red light district to stay out of. Don't go there, but that's the first place we go. And
never, ever tell someone in the military not to do
Don't
something.
do this. Yeah. Don't go there. Okay. It must be good.
Must be fun.
Right.
We're going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was with me pretty much the whole time. I think 6 months before I got out of the service, he was transferred to Quantico and did president's duty. So
he was really squared away.
Yeah, he was squared away.
Yeah. Did you keep in contact with him?
When I got out of the service, the first year was kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget about certain things. Kept in touch with a few people. That I went back, and that was the time. We didn't have Facebook. We had MySpace or something, maybe.
Oh, yes. I
don't know.
MySpace.
And so trying to find somebody on that, you couldn't do it.
Right.
So it took me a while, and I finally caught up with them.
Did you?
Yeah. I was probably out for 10 years, back in living life. And I found him on Facebook, I think it was. And then a whole new life started again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty amazing.
Yep.
All right. So you do your tours. You get on a couple of really good cruises, actually.
Right.
And then it's time for your enlistment's up. So did you come? Assuming you came back to Michigan because you're sitting here now. Yeah. So what happens?
So I came back to Michigan, and just thinking, all right, what am I going to do for work now? So I figured, okay, well, I'm in hydraulics, and I love hydraulics, so I'm going to go to school. I went to community college, and I went for robotics because that was the upcoming thing back then. Robotics was, and I was working at a mortgage company just to help me pay my bills to get through college, and kind of went through the classes and a lot of math. I'm going, holy cow! I mean, I don't need this for hydraulics. I need a little bit, but I
Right.
don't need trigonometry and plane trig and all these other things. And so I went through and I got pretty much all the way through. And then when I was just about done with my bachelor's degree,
Mhm.
they decided that they were going to drop all the courses for robotics. So I think I'm like six credits short of having a degree,
Wow.
but don't need it now. So,
Right.
so
I
I'm
mean,
good. So anyway, when I came back from the service and went back home, got that job at the mortgage company just for something. And again, I think that was paying $6.75 an hour or something back then.
yeah, big bucks.
Yeah, the big money. While I was working there, it's you imagine it's an office building and it's just full of women,
Yeah,
you know. So you're scouting around looking, and
because you're a guy, and that's what we do,
yeah,
right?
that's what we
Let's
do.
just be honest.
So got my eye on this one girl and I'm watching her, I'm still a little bit shy. I don't know why I was shy, but was a little bit, and finally got the nerve to talk to her and went and sat with her for lunch a couple times and decided I'm going to throw a Halloween party at our house. So I threw a Halloween party and invited her. And so that was really the first time at the party that we actually got to sit down and get comfortable with each other, talk to
Yeah,
each other and stuff like that. Um, 3 months later, we were engaged.
that's pretty fast, Mike.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
know.
sound very shy to me.
Yeah, that was pretty fast,
Yeah.
you know.
So were you living with some other folk? Like, did you have roommates or something then, or?
Actually, back then I moved back in with my parents
Okay.
until I says I'm gonna stay here for just a little bit, get back on my feet.
Yeah.
And they were all right. They lived in Novi. They moved when I was in the service. Didn't tell me. Sold all my stuff, gave it away.
Oh, a lot of times they just changed the locks, but they
Right,
just
right.
moved.
Yeah,
Wow.
had a
Okay.
nice pool table that I come home to was gone. Yeah, we left it with the house. But
Nice.
yeah, so pretty much anywhere there. I met her. We had the Halloween party.
Mhm.
Gave her the first kiss after the end of the night of the Halloween party, and we haven't been apart since that day.
That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
What was it about her?
She was just down to earth,
Yeah.
you know, comfortable. We could talk,
Hmm.
and we just got along great. When if there was things, you're gonna go out with your friends tonight. I don't know. What do you want to do? You want to do something? And every night, for the first full year, we saw each other every single day after work, other than even in work.
Yeah.
We hung out for until we got married. We got married in a Catholic church, so we had to know each other for a year.
You had to take the classes, didn't
Yes,
you?
yes, we did.
Did you guys pass the test?
Yes, we did.
I'm just curious.
Yep. So we had to wait a year to get married, but we got married on to the day, October 29th,
Wow.
from the day that we met, had the party to the day we walked down the aisle.
Yeah. When you find your person, you just know them, right?
Right. Right. And you talk to your kids and they're talking about, getting serious after a year and you're going, I don't know, are you serious? And then they look at you and go, yeah, 3 months, right?
When you know, you know.
Yeah, 3 months.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So you get married, you're blessed in the church, and then what's next?
So after that, I've already worked my way up through the company, and I took over, pretty much running the supply department, supplies and stuff for the whole company, shipping stuff out. So we were making a little bit money. I think when we got married, our combined wages, I think we were 16.59 for the both of us.
Yeah.
And people nowadays, you go, I wouldn't even get out of bed for that.
No, you could go buy a cheeseburger for that
Right.
much money, right?
Right.
So this job that you took that was just going to kind of get you through is
Yeah.
you've actually just excelled at it.
Yeah.
Do you think that some of the things you learned from Rob helped you be successful
Yeah. Yeah.
at your
I do,
job?
because he taught me everything that you do it with all you got.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I did. So, I mean, even starting out at the bottom of the guy pulling pens and paper and shipping them to places. Next thing you know, I'm supervisor there. And these big buildings, they all have cubicles that
Right.
the people sit in. So I'm going, well, what's that deal all about? Who does these cubicles and things of that nature? And he goes, well, we have a little group that gets together and, we'll show you how to do it if you're interested. Well, the next thing you know, I was running that crew. And we'd installed steel case office furniture out of Grand Rapids. So then on the big moves, we would hire an outside company
Mm-hmm.
to come in and give us hands, and we would work with them. And so I'm looking at these guys and I'm going, well, you guys probably make better money than what I'm making here. And so I quit there and I went into work for Contract Interiors out of Southfield, and wasn't long. I was project manager,
Mm-hmm.
running crews and just excelling at it. And I loved it. So that was pretty good. Um, this all took place within a couple years of being married and stuff.
Right.
We got married. We bought a house in Kensington Hill, a trailer up on the hill,
Uh-huh.
right across from the lake.
Yeah.
And we lived there for, I don't know, 2-3 years. And from there, I go, I think it's time to get out of here. Housing was at the point, it was affordable, but we were still scared. Interest rates were extremely crazy. So we found a house, and at the time, houses, if you found a house, you better buy it now because they were gone in 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's just the way it was. So we went looking, and we found a house out in Union Lake, West Bloomfield. It was a small 936 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, barely had enough room for, the two of us. But
Yeah.
that's where we started off with 4 kids out of that house. Had a basement, luckily.
Phew, 4 kids.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we had a basement in it.
Uh-huh.
And I fixed it up, completely gutted it, outside, inside, new furnaces, air conditioning. And I mean, that was the first time I ever installed a furnace in my life. And I go, I think I can do this,
Right.
air conditioning. So from drywall to whatever, didn't matter. So we bought that house, and you talking to my son, Brandon, he's got pretty good memories of living on Maddox Street.
Mm-hmm.
We had our 4 kids there, and the neighborhood had just flipped over from older people to all the younger people moving in.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody that lived there had little kids. We paid $40,000 for the first house with a 14 or 15% interest rate.
Yeah. Okay, so this might be lost on people, but there was a time where if you got like 12%, you were doing pretty
You were
good.
doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were doing good.
Yeah.
You know,
We got spoiled for a lot of years with our 3%, 2%.
yeah. So we bought that house, and we fixed it all up, and the kids would they're coming up in age, and so I mean we're pushing 2 strollers because our kids are all close in ages with 4 kids.
So did you like have them one right after the other?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My wife always complained because she couldn't have a beer for 6 years.
I bet that beer tasted great though
Right,
after
from
6 years.
start to finish.
Right?
So, I mean, we had our group, our whole street, we would block off our street at both ends. It was probably equivalent to maybe 2 city blocks,
Uh-huh.
and it was paved. And so we would do what was called stroller blading. And we all had strollers because everybody had little kids.
Yeah.
And the parents would put on roller blades, and the little bit older kids would have their own. And we would push strollers up and down the streets all day and go around the subdivision.
That sounds like a great
It
time.
was. It really was.
Yeah.
We had our block parties, and all the kids became great friends. And I think the kids even still hang out with some of the friends that they grew up with there.
I know Brandon talks about them all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, like they're part of his family.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we lived there for, I think everything's been 10 years. So we lived on Maddox Street for 10 years.
Mhm.
And then my wife's brother looked at her, and she goes, there's a couple houses over here for sale in Brighton. I'm going, man, Brighton's one of them up and coming places. They call it the hub because you can get to Lansing, Ann Arbor, Flint, and
Yeah.
wherever.
It's a great location.
Right. And I'm going, I don't know if we can afford that. And I says, you go take a look, and if you like it, you let me know. So she runs out to Brighton, takes a look, visiting her brother. She goes, the house is gorgeous. I'm going, all right.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah. So I went out and took a look at it, and it had a nice lot. It was probably a half-acre lot. House needed work. It was not run down, but it was dated. Talk dated in the 70s, you're talking 50s.
Right, right. Yeah, you buy a house
Yeah.
now, dated's like the 80s.
You're lucky if you didn't have a yellow toilet and refrigerator,
I think it's Harvest Gold.
Yeah, something like that.
That's so crazy. The avocado and the Harvest Gold.
Yep.
Yeah.
So ended up buying that place. So at the time now, when we bought that place, where was I working? For a while there, after I did the steel case furniture and stuff, I went off on my own.
Okay.
Because it was the child care what we paid for child care back then. It's like now, I don't know how people afford it.
Right.
And so I went off into business on my own. That way I could pick the times when I wanted to work. I could do a lot of stuff at night. And then I played Mr. Mom,
Yeah.
during the day. So we did that.
So what was your wife doing?
She was working at the mortgage company still.
Other than being pregnant.
Right,
She was working at the mortgage company.
She was pregnant and keeping the insurance flowing.
Yeah. God bless her.
Right. And so I would do construction, had my own company. It was carpentry by Mike Mikus. And I worked everywhere. And I wouldn't say that I wasn't good at managing it, but by the time you get done at the end of the year with taxes and everything, I'm going, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
And I can just work for somebody and, make the same amount of money and not have all the headaches. And so I think I was working for Donovan Construction at the time. And she says, you want to move to Brighton? Well, I was driving to Brighton anyway. And I go, this is kind of a bonus.
Right.
So I started working for them and we bought the house out there. Funny fact is that every one of our kids, when they were born, I was in a cast. I was either had my arm in a cast. When I worked for Donovan Construction, we were raising a wall and a brace slipped and hit me in the back of the leg and snapped my Achilles. So I went down to the ground for that one. And then I had another broken wrist. So every one of our kids, I was in a cast. And so I'm at home with 4 kids, crawling on my hands and knees, holding a baby in one arm, dragging a foot along and
right
with a cast on it. And I don't know if you ever snapped an Achilles tendon, but that's 6 to 8 months in a cast.
Wow.
And I had my foot pointed straight down. So they had to put a heel on my cast to make it a walking cast.
Yeah.
And it was a 5.5-inch heel. And so then they took my other shoe and put a 5.5-inch lift on it so I could at least walk. But yeah, that was a lot of fun too, raising kids in casts and arms and legs. And
was that just karma for your wife not being able to have beer?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, but it's funny because when I think about those times with my kids too, right? It doesn't matter because you're smiling like these were great times. I don't care if I have a cast on or what's going on. These were great times I get to be with my kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we moved out to Brighton. Ended up the kids walked to school if they wanted to. We had a junior high on one side, elementary school on the other side. One of Barb's cousins moved in across the street from us, and so now we had cousins that they were playing with, and the kids had a great time. I mean, it turned into every bit of Maddox Street again because it was a kind of a closed off sub. There was no traffic through it, so the kids did whatever they wanted to. At the same time where we were doing all of this, I was working for Donovan Construction, but me and my mom were building houses also.
Oh, so you had like a side business going on.
So my mom decided that she wanted to get in and help people that couldn't afford homes.
Yeah.
So she started building these box homes, I guess you could say. And so I think we threw up 5 of them, and she did that. And then they ended up moving to Tennessee when we were living in Maddox or in Jane Street in Brighton. They moved down to Tennessee, Lake Tansy, to retire. I think they just wanted to get away from all the kids.
Well, I can speak as a grandparent that I love having grandchildren.
I do too.
They wear you out.
They do. They do.
I had my granddaughter for a weekend one time.
Yeah.
And my son and his wife went back to Alabama. And that Sunday, I couldn't even get off the couch. I was like, what the hell happened to me?
Right. So I don't even think I ever mentioned it. We had Brandon was the oldest, and we have my other son, Justin. And then Christopher after that, and then my daughter, Lauren. And so proud of all of them. They're all doing great. Brandon, military, and with everything that he's got, runs 4 businesses out of his house, I think.
He is one of the most, and I'm not just saying this because you're his dad. I tell people this all the time. He's like one of the most talented people I know.
I got it from me.
Yeah. Well, that and people just love him. Like he somehow connected with my son because my son was in the Army. Somehow they connected, and and they're best buddies now.
Oh,
And
great.
Brandon got my son into hockey.
Right.
But Brandon's very talented.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
think that guy could just do anything that. Oh, I'm going to do this today, and
Right.
when we get done, I'll show you some of his work.
Yeah.
Because he's done some work for me.
Okay.
I'll
Very
show
good.
you what he's done. So yeah, so Brandon and then
So Brandon and Justin. Justin's a welder. He works for Donovan Construction out in Brighton, and moved up through there. And he does all their welding. They build houses on these big helical spheres and things that they have to sink in the swamps.
yeah,
Christopher, right now he's playing Mr. Mom. He built. If you remember back there, Chevy put out the Copo Camaros.
yeah,
So he was working at a shop that they would bring the Camaros in, and Chris would do all the cutouts and reinforce the frames and weld all the stuff on them. And he's welding on these cars, and then the people that are purchasing these cars would come in to look at them, and they would have to bring Chris and push him off to the side, and they'd bring an older gentleman in there and do a little bit of welding, and because they didn't want to see an 18-year-old kid welding on these $200,000 cars.
right.
But he was good enough, and that's what he did. And so that was pretty good.
That's a dream job.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it. But then they started having kids, and everything else came into play there. And then Lauren, my daughter, she works where I worked at for a while. Cadillac Asphalt is where I retired from.
Okay.
I think by the time we moved to Jane Street, that's when I was switching jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was switching jobs too. So in 1 year, we bought a house, both of us switched jobs, and we're going, I think we're crazy. I don't know what we're going to do here if this doesn't work out.
It doesn't sound like the Mickus family's afraid of
Right,
change at all.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we both jumped in with both feet. I started off at pretty much entry level in the asphalt business.
Mm-hmm.
And and they said, if you the highest you can go is running a plant. And so that's where I set my goals. But mind you, I was still making the same money as a plant operator because we were not union. I had a choice to go union or non-union. I elected to go non-union and manage my own money.
Uh-huh.
But they said, within a year you could probably apply to run a plant. Well, 2 months later, I had my own plant. So I was running the plant at night out in Clarkston, Michigan, the Cadillac Asphalt. Back then it was Thompson McCulley. So I did that, and again, put everything I had into it, became plant operator, and worked my way up the highest I could. Had every award that you could get for running a plant, best in this, best in that, and till one day I had a falling out with one of our bosses, and he didn't like the answer I gave him. But again, I come out of the service, and I was no BS. You can't tell me that this is gray when it's either black or white. And they would always try to play the gray line, and I don't play that.
No. Some people can't handle the truth. That's
right.
That's how it is.
So we got into it, and they took my plant away after, I think it was 15 years I was there.
Wow.
And they took my plant away, and they go, we're going to make you a loader operator, heavy equipment. And I go, whatever. By that time I was already getting fed up with it.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and that was about the same time that we were switching jobs. My wife was getting a new job. She works for a fabricating company in Milford.
Mm-hmm.
Still does to this day. She won't give it up. I don't know what's wrong with her. But so I was doing that, and it actually moved me closer to home because I was working out in Belleville at the time, at Rawsonville Road, and it switched me up here to Wixom, living in Brighton. I go, that's a no-brainer. That saves me 40 minutes a day just to get to work.
Especially in that traffic.
Right. So that was a godsend there. And, everybody at the plant thought I was coming over to spy on them. So it took me a while to work my way into the groove of those people. But it all worked out, and stuck out the rest of my life there at the Cadillac Asphalt.
Yeah. So did you retire from there?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. When did you retire?
In 2022.
Okay. So you've been out for about 3 years. You retired right on the same time I retired.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were making all these changes. So we lived in Jane Street for about 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And my wife goes, my mom's thinking about selling their house, or, well, my wife's dad passed away from cancer.
Yeah.
So her mom moved out of the house, and then she had lunch with the neighbor. His wife just passed away, and next thing you know, they're getting married. Well, they moved into the house right next to where her mom lived.
Right.
And she goes, "We're going to build a house next door. Do you guys want to buy this house?" I'm going, "Oh my God, again, this is 5 acres. And, where's this money coming from?"
Right. Was the house dated?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got another
I
project.
got another project. Every house we bought, we gutted completely and went right through.
Yeah.
So this house was 1,500 square feet, sat on 5 acres on a dead end cul-de-sac right at the end of it. There's a runway right at the end of our street.
Uh-huh.
So we had the little planes flying over all the time, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to watch.
So we looked at the house, and I'm going, okay, it's a nice house. And, they want a couple $100,000 for it, which is probably a deal. But it's not big enough for us with 4 kids. Just can't do it. So I started drawing, and I drew up blueprints.
Mhm.
And so the next thing you know, we bought it. And so then we bought it at Thanksgiving. And I go, all right, we got to jump in both feet. We had a home equity line of credit and blah, blah, blah. And so I drew up the plans, and I added 1,700 onto the back of it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. At the time, Brandon was 16 years old. Justin was probably 15. Chris was 14. And I go, come on, guys, this is it. So I had him with sledgehammers busting the brick off the back of the house. And, between the kids and my wife, and I had help from one friend, we built that whole addition onto that house. So the house is 3,100 square foot ranch. So,
wow.
yeah, so it's long. You can throw a football in there 90 feet.
Well, and you can live in it too. Like, as you get older,
right.
You don't need to worry about it. There's no stairs, right?
Right.
It's all ranch.
No stairs. The biggest problem that we're having right now is with the house is so big, and my daughter moved back in with us, but for the time there was just two of us and 3,100 square feet. That's a lot of house, and you couldn't shut off individual rooms because open floor plan. Of course, we want open floor plan.
There's a downside to that, huh?
Yeah. She's got a 450, 500 square foot kitchen. So the 1,700 square foot consisted of a family room and two little offices, which were bedrooms at the time.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. So it was huge. I mean, it's a great house to have the grandkids and party in.
Oh, yeah.
We have the room.
Yeah.
So.
And so that's where you're at today then, right?
Yeah, that's where we're at today. We've talked about, do we want to sell? Do we want to downsize? And I go, do you like it here? She goes, I love it. We back up to a swamp, probably a 20-acre swamp. Nothing but ducks and geese out there. I hunt back there for the geese and stuff. The grandkids can come over and do whatever they want, ride Power Wheels, motorcycles. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's all good. So I don't think we'll probably die there.
Nobody's going to build back there,
no,
right? Yeah, so
can't do it.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good. Well, we have talked about a lot of stuff this afternoon. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Not really. I think whoever listens to this in the future will get an idea who we are.
Yeah.
The only thing I guess I should bring up, when I was getting close to retirement, it was around 2022. My wife was diagnosed stage 4 cancer, lung cancer.
Yeah.
And so I went on FMLA from work, and I took time off and trying to figure out what we're going to do with all of this. And we got her on a program, and she went through treatments for, God, I can't tell you. It was like a month on, or 2 months on, or whatever it was, and then a month off. And we put her on some special things from the cannabis shops, which I'm going to tell you, I solely believe in that.
Yeah.
And she kept going back to the doctors, and she started off with grapefruit-sized tumors in her lung cavity. And doctors are going, I don't know what you're doing, but everything's working out, and you're healing, So within a year, she was cancer-free.
That's a miracle.
Stage 4.
Yeah, that's a miracle. I mean, that's a miracle.
What do you do,
Yeah.
So that kind of hit home that, we still got a road ahead of us to make sure everything is going well and keeping her healthy. But my work was really good with me at the time. I was taking time off. I'd get phone calls. This is what they told me. You need to get home right now. So I would,
Hmm.
and start. We did that for probably 6 months, and I go, this isn't working out with me doing all of this. So I think I'm going to retire. And I was 62 at the time, and I said when I turn 63, I'm going to retire.
Hmm.
And so she was already 100% cancer free at the time, and so knock on wood there. And I go, we're going to start doing stuff. So just you think of things you want to do, what I'm going to do. I'm gonna go fishing. That's my pastime. I love to fish.
Yeah.
Fishing and hunting, but fishing is number one on the list. I think I've been down to Detroit a couple times already this year. We get limits of walleye.
It's been a couple good days.
Yeah, it's been good. So yeah, she's 100% cancer free now. In fact, just last week she got her port taken out. She wanted to hold on to it. She goes, "I'm not taking it out because the minute I do, something bad's gonna happen." And I go, "No, you need to get rid of that."
Yeah.
So she got rid of that. Um, my daughter got pregnant and moved in with us
Hmm.
during some of this time. She moved in like last year. So now we have a grandchild living with us. Um, Lauren lives the alternative lifestyle, so she's married to another woman.
Okay.
Okay. Um, a lot of people, I don't know. Everybody can have their views about it. If you're happy, you're happy. That's the way I look at it.
You love who
You
you
know,
love, and that's your
right?
daughter.
That's it.
Yeah.
Um, so they live with us, and I get to spend time with the grandchild. And last year her wife come home and she goes, "Man, I kind of got these bruises showing up." Come to find out, she had leukemia.
Oh no.
So she went through everyday treatments,
Uh huh.
and that was rough. My daughter's doing the best she can. We're trying to help out, and so that she went through treatments for I think 6 8 months. Knock on wood, 100% clear right now. So she's they're living life now.
That's
So
great.
she beat that. Both of my parents died from cancer,
Uh huh.
so that was kind of I've seen what it does to them, and didn't want to go through that.
Yeah.
So no, so now everybody's doing good, living life the best we can, and going from there.
Sounds like you've had a lot of miracles in
Yes.
your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon talked about a little bit with you about Veterans Connected.
Yeah.
I became involved with Veterans Connected as soon as I retired, or maybe even a little bit before that. And that really opened my eyes. I mean, Veterans Connected is a ministry group first, and then we help veterans. And just watching what God has done for our family.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, things go on and things break, and I go, don't worry about it. We'll get it fixed. And then I run across somebody. I got a heart size of whatever you want to call, because if I see somebody down, I'm going to help them out. And I look at my wife, can we afford to do this? She'll just look at me. She goes, it doesn't matter, because it's coming back to us. And so that's the way we've looked at it and lived our life that way. And it's been amazing the last couple of years since now that we're retired. We're living our best lives. We make more money now being retired than it was when I was working, and when she was working full time. She went to work she's working 2 days now just to keep her sanity, to get out of the house away from me, I think.
Yeah, I remember you saying she just can't get away from that place.
Right. And so she's going to do that. And I go, so the first time they give you a problem there, just walk away. That's it. You don't owe them nothing.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how we live right now. So, I don't know. I'm just happy. Our whole family gets along. All the kids talk to each other weekly, and I talk, Brandon. I talked to Brandon 4 times this morning already.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My son calls me every day. He lives in Alabama.
Right.
I sent him this meme about how this person was talking about being an adult, but they need an adultier adult to help them.
Sure.
And he texted me back and said, "That's why I call you every day."
Right. Exactly.
That's a good feeling.
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like you've done the right things with your life and with your family.
Yeah.
And, You've made good friends along the way. I love talking about your friend Rob because no matter how successful we are, there's always somebody there that helped us, right? We didn't get here on our own.
Right.
You know, there was always someone who mentored us or said, hey, are you sure that's what you want to do? Or kind of moved us in the direction we needed to go.
That's a fact. One quick note about him. I ended up finally contacting him again. And, of course, we all served at Lejeune. Right. And, you know, the cancer scares and everything there. Yeah. I'm probably one of the only ones left out of anybody that I know that hasn't died from cancer. Yeah. So, knock on wood there. But I ended up getting a hold of Bob, and I called him up, and his wife's name was Chip, and I called her mom and all that stuff. And I called her up. I got a hold of her phone number, and she answered the phone. Hello. And I go, is this Chip? She goes, oh, my God. You know, she knew my voice, knew the voice right away.
Who wouldn't?
Right. So I ended up going down and visiting him. And they run on a streak of hard luck. And Bob had cancer. And so I ended up, we went on a trip, me and my wife. And I go, we're going to make a round trip and we're going to go back through Pennsylvania because I got to go see Bob. Yeah. So I went and saw Bob. And he was doing okay, but I was going through treatments and stuff like that. And so then we went back home and I got a call that he was doing bad again. So I went back down and saw him another time. And we talked nonstop, just sitting in his chair. He was laying in a hospital bed. And we sat there and we talked nonstop, just bringing back up all the old stuff. And that was really good. I think it was good for both of us, you know. And then 2 days later, I got the call that he passed away.
Yeah. That's kind of bittersweet, right?
Right.
Because you did get to reconnect and had that time.
Yeah.
But I think God put that.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I was very thankful for that time.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'll bet he was too.
Yeah. Yeah.
As was his wife.
Yep. Yeah, and then she passed away. I kept in contact with her to see if I could do anything, keep helping them. I mean, I went down there a couple times and built things for him because he couldn't do it. And then she passed away about a year later. They were young. Man, they were young. Probably 50s. But, oh well, that's my life in a nutshell.
Well, we've covered a lot. We did. Nowhere near the 3 hours that Brandon and I spent together, but you can pick on him about that. I really, like we talked about earlier before we started recording, I always ask the same question at the end, and that is when someone's listening to this story years from now, what message do you want them to take away?
I think, you know, you have to live life to its fullest, and you're going to get things thrown at you that don't work out, and you gotta make the best. You know that from Brandon with his attitude. You got to make the best of it. I worked a lot being in the asphalt business. I was laid off during the winter times, but in the summertime I was never home. And that was a sacrifice that I had to make. Is it worth it? I waited out as my kids didn't want for anything. You know, Brandon, all three boys played travel hockey and my daughter played travel soccer. Yeah. Well, you know, you just start looking back into the early 80s. Well, what the money that I told you that we were making, it was $13,000 a year for them to play hockey. Mm-hmm. You know, so I mean, we sacrificed the things that we wanted. We went without as parents to give it to our kids, and it's good to do that. But the biggest thing I can say is that I've never ran into anybody on their deathbed that said I didn't work it off. You know, you've heard it. We all say it. Yeah. Spend time with the family. Every time, nobody's allowed to leave our house without saying, I love you. You know, if you turn to drive away, they're going to pull you back out of the car. Didn't get the hug. Right. You know, if they say love you and you don't respond, hello, you know, what did you hear me? You know, so make time for family, and just live life. That's all I can say. You know, don't put too much pressure on any one thing, because tomorrow could all change, and it has. That's you know. True. It is.
All right. Well, thanks for taking time out this afternoon to sit here and talk with me and share your story with everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I wish my grandfather would have did it.
Someday we'll figure out how to do that.
Right.
Thank you for watching Veterans Archives. We hope you enjoyed this veteran story. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share our videos, as well as checking us out on social media. We're on Facebook and TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. Be sure to check out those pages, share, and like. And for more information about what we do, go to www.veteransarchives.org.